Recording started. So as everybody aware is that we will be recording. So if you want to turn off your cameras, actually it's not going to be on the recording, so that should be fine. Okay, again, welcome to our OWASP Frankfurt Stammtisch 48, and this time in the second virtual edition this year. I'm Dan Gora, and together with Johannes Schönborn, we are delighted to give you a full roundup on various OWASP projects that have been actively influenced by the German community. And that also includes projects such as the JuiceShop, the DevSecOps maturity model, security pins, and much more. So stay tuned to learn about different OWASP projects. And then also we conclude this with an interesting talk about physical red teaming and just what could happen, what could go wrong in a red teaming assessment. But before we get started, just have a short discussion or short run-up on virtual housekeeping rules. As you're aware, is that the rules are different from our previous in-person meetings. We hope you know where your toilet is and how to use your local fire extinguisher. However, we kindly ask you to mute your mic during the course of the presentation and turn off your video just to save bandwidth. Be aware that actually Timo is okay if you unmute yourself during the course of the presentation, so feel free just to go ahead and ask questions anytime. And also be aware that the session is going to be recorded on YouTube and be made available after. That also includes the slides. Also, if you have any questions, just use the Slido Q&A section. So if you just have Slido open, that's perfect. And use the Zoom chat provided. As well as afterwards, we're going to send out some feedback Slido votes. So provide any suggestions. And yeah, just please share your feedback on what you want in the next time, what you like, what you didn't like, and whether you're interested in giving some other talks. So again, we have the vote. I think that's pretty clear for most people. So we got quite a balanced audience, and most people have never used OWASP-related context but are aware of it, or just use some OWASP project and content, but only a few times. So I think that's something that is going to be quite interesting for everybody to learn more about it. Before we get started, just brief update on OWASP itself and what's been happening or what's actually currently happening. If you are not aware, or maybe you might be aware that OWASP is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. And that means that the OWASP calendar is packed full with exciting community events, training events, and lightning talks. And also there's going to be a big conference coming up on September. And I think the conference itself is also free. So just stay tuned. There will be more information made available after, as soon as we come closer to that date. Otherwise, in the meantime, if you're interested in some lightning talks, I can highly recommend the lightning conference, which is the next one is coming up on the May 12th, and it's going to be around hacking APIs for beginners. It's going to feature Katie Paxton-Fear, which is who's be giving a really interesting talk on just getting started with hacking APIs. Also, this time in a reasonable time zone. It's 18 o'clock German time. And if you want to sign up, it's fully free. Just go on lightning.owasp.org, and it lasts around 90 minutes. Also, if you are interested in a bit more deep dive around application security, you should check out our virtual training series events, which are running usually in a multi-day format. And they are focusing usually on quite interesting application security topics. So the next one is coming up on the 25th to the 26th of May. And this will be a focus on different seminars around DevSecOps, hacking modern web apps, as well as around Kubernetes security. So if you're interested in a bit more deep dive of training events, I think this is definitely worthwhile checking it out. Be aware that the price for the 2-day training series will cost you around $500 US. Considering that this is a 2-day training event, that's, I think, a reasonable price. But yeah, if you're just interested, otherwise just join the lightning talks. Enough updates for now. Let's get you started with our exciting program highlights. So first of all, we will have Timo Pagel, who will be sharing his overview of DevSecOps OWASP projects. especially ones that he has worked actively or contributed actively himself, and also on the ones that he's using as part of his day-to-day work. That's going to be really interesting and a really full roundup. Afterwards, I will be showing a hands-on session using the OWASP JuiceShop, so giving you an overview how to get started, how to install the JuiceShop, and then doing some really interesting challenges around cross-site scripting, SQL injection, as well as finding hidden information on the JuiceShop. Afterwards, we are going to conclude the evening with an exciting talk on physical red teaming. And Mihael Stanojevic will be sharing his experience of how he conducted physical red teaming assessments in financial service companies, and is all the things that went wrong during the course of those assessments. Great. So let me welcome you now to our key speaker, Timo Pagel, who will be presenting his overview of DevSecOps OWASP projects. Just shortly about Timo Pagel. He's currently a security architect located in Hamburg, and he has got over 15 years of experience, both in system integration and web security. He's currently a freelancer and as well as a trainer working in his own company. And at the same time, he's a very active OWASP community member. So really delighted to have you here. Timo, are you ready to present?
Sure, thank you for the nice introduction.
Yep, you're welcome.
You should be able to see my screen now.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Good. So let's start. You already gave a nice introduction, so we can skip this. Let us directly start with a strategic view, and this will be kind of also our agenda for today. So this is an overview of how an information security management system, OWASP software assurance maturity model, and OWASP DevSecOps maturity model play together. So on the top, we have here the information security management system, and some of the things which are required by the information security management system are covered by SAM, especially obviously the software related stuff and the operations related requirements. Over SAM itself has different practices which are aligned in a very nice way, so that it's good to look at it from a management point of view. And some of them align directly to DevSecOps management, to the DevSecOps maturity model dimensions, which you can see here, for example, build and deployment, but there are also connections between sometimes. So this is a more technical view, while this is more an overview. And the nice thing is here, for example, in test and verification, you get a close to step-by-step information on how to implement automated security tests, for example. So SAM is kind of a standard, I would say, which is very often used. It provides you a high-level overview. It's very good to assess your company, to see where are you right now and where do you want to be in the next months, in the next 3 months, in the next year, or in 5 years. Then you can plan your high-level targets, and then I suggest that you take a look after you have your high-level targets to the DevSecOps maturity model. Yeah, it's more emerging. I wouldn't call it standard, but I see it more and more used. And it's more low level. It's very close to the technical implementation. It also has a mapping, for example, to ISO and SAM, so that you can easily pick the ones you would like to have, the activities you would like to implement. You could also use it as a documentation. That's what I'm doing at one client. So we use the application here to document what we're having, and then this is a CISO can create an Excel export and use it right away. As I said, we will use this as kind of an agenda for today. So we start with the DevSecOps dimensions here, which are part of the DevSecOps maturity model, and we will go through them, through most of them, let's say, through most of them. And we start with culture and organization. And that is the first part, because from my point of view, all the technical things are just technical problems which are easily solvable from my point of view. And the cultural and organization things, that are the ones which are taking time to implement and to let it grow. One thing which you should do in the start, that is also recommended by Sam and Dsam, to have security champions. And when you want to start with security champions, the question is, how do I start with security question? How to integrate it? And the OWASP Security Champions playbook provides a way on how you can actually implement security champions. It doesn't mean that you need to follow this completely, but you get an idea on how to do it. So you first need to identify your teams. Then you need to define the role. What actually does security champion means for your organization? Does it mean the person is responsible for security, or is the security champion just a contact point and doesn't have responsibility by itself? That are things which you need to discuss in the start, especially with the management, because I have the experience that mostly you start with, yeah, there's a contact point because that's good for culture. And then as soon as the company grows, the management would like to change this to so that the security champion becomes more responsible. Then you need to nominate security champions. You need to define communications channels, a knowledge base where you can share your knowledge. And obviously, you need to maintain the interest in the Security Champions program which you created. I personally like to perform a meeting where all security champions of an organization come together, and I actually do it bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks. And we are meeting for 1.5 hours. So that is a very high investment. So you need to be very confident when you present that to the management. But when in case security is important, then the management might agree on it. Maybe you find another schedule like once in a month, but this provides the ability to discuss pain points with the security champions. And what is running good. So you can what I'm doing is asking a team where I know that something is going good to tell their experience, so that other people get to know the experience of their team. Within the security champions, within this 1.5 hour, we don't talk the whole time about problems and good things from the teams. I also give a training in that 1.5 hour. So one very nice application, I actually got a pullover because I contributed multiple times to the juice shop. But you would also get one in case you make nice contributions. So the JuiceShop is a training application. It is probably the most modern and sophisticated insecure web application. So it has vulnerabilities by intention, so that you or you with a team can explore these vulnerabilities and think about what could we do better in our own applications. I don't want to talk too much about this, because afterwards we are getting um, a nice talk provided by Dan, so I will not talk more about it. Yeah, okay. One thing I can say, the OWASP top 10 are obviously covered by the OWASP JuiceShop. The OWASP top 10 is an awareness document, so it covers the top 10 threats for web applications. It's recreated every 3 years, I think, was a target. So maybe we can expect one this year. The latest version is from 2017, and it's very great for an initial training plan. And I have to add that when you do this for a while, that you might want to do these topics again. So I have experienced that there is a lot of changes in the teams. So people are leaving a company, and then other people are coming to that organization newly hired. And it means that these new people needs to be trained again, right? So you, when you perform SQL injection in 1 year, after after a year, you have to think, do I need to present this again? Ooh, wrong direction. We also saw here in the in the playbook, maintain interest. So how do we maintain interest? I would say maintain interest in security. One way is to provide rewards. So you can provide rewards, especially to people here. That is what this icon should mean. So directly to people, not to teams. You can provide high fives. You can say, okay, you did a very nice job, and then you provide a high five. It's a bit more complicated in a virtual world, but it's also possible to use icon, emojis for that. And another way is pins. I developed these security pins. That is an OWASP project, OWASP security pins, which you can see here. That are different pins on this head to maintain the interest. When I first created this program, the security champion program, and I invited people from all the teams. I think I invited 40 and to that event, and in total, 4 or 5 people came to that first security champion training, and I was very disappointed. And I thought, how can I enhance the interest? And the way was to provide these icons, these pins, physical handouts for the people with the topic itself on it. So, for example, SQL injection is one of the pins. And then they have something which they can take into the Teams room and put it on the head. When you create such pins, here is an example for that is the logo itself. The positive things are it's a reminder because it's showing up in the room and everyone can see it every day. You might don't take a close look, but at least you get an overview of what you have achieved so far. You get this achievement very fast because you just need to attend the training as a team. It's a gamification. One team or multiple teams said we want to collect all teams, so they just showed up to get the pins. So you can think, is that the right motivation? But I would say as more people are there, as better it is. And even if this is only the initial trigger to come there, when you good in presenting, they will very fast be happy and follow your content. Yeah. And as I said, it transforms security to be touchable. That is one of the main things. So you have a takeaway from the training. As a downside is that you need to design these things, but the positive news is, as it is in OWASP project, there are plenty of pins already designed, which you just need to print. This is how this head looks. I just use this head here so that you have a point where you can collect the pins so that they are not randomly in the room. And here you see, for example, the OWASP Top 10 itself for an overview, or here you see mobile storage security, a very specific topic which I covered at one client, so that we have had a deep dive. What can this be after a while? So after a while, I had a lot of these pins, so I needed these toolbox here to collect them, and you see all of them are full. That is due to the reason that when you go to the meeting, you don't know how many people are there, so you always need to develop a bit more than you think your attendees, than the amount of expected attendees. And this is how it will look after a while. But as I said, it's not a problem because you will use the same topics after a while again, so then you can just hand out the pins here. After COVID hit, actually this collection here didn't happen anymore because we met virtually. And in a virtual room, you can't hand out these pins. So what one of my clients did, is in Backstage. That is an asset catalog. You also have this team view in the asset catalog. This is the team dog marshals here, and we made a visual representation of this pins so that you can still see the achievements you're having in this team view. On the picture you don't see it, but when you click on it you get more information when it happened and where the slides for the topics are. So that was a team review for participating in a training which happens every 1.5 weeks. When you create a training which happens maybe only once in a year, and you choose the OWASP JuiceShop to be one of the tools in the trainings, you can print such a poster here. And then you see here, these are again kind of pins, stickers, which you can put on it. Right now they are not colored, but the sticker itself is colored so that you can slowly see your progress in the training. As an alternative, maybe a bit cheaper than to have such a poster printed, is to just hand out such stickers. And on the sticker here, you see the levels. The JuiceShop has different difficulty levels, and here you see that you can grow the stars on the sticker, and when someone solves the tasks with difficulty 6, then you can hand out such a sticker as an achievement. Are there any questions so far?
Not from my side. Anybody else?
Maybe I can have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So basically, can you please tell where did you get the exercises, or how did you build the exercises to train the team?
How to build the exercise?
So
Björn has a very nice. I will show it. Give me a second. I think it's called IT security lecture. Yeah. So Björn has published his slides, which for the training he is giving to students. And you can use these slides here. He has a slide deck, and the first ones are more basic security knowledge. And when you go here on the bottom, these are actually web application security related topics. So you can, for example, go into the cross-site scripting slide, so you see how he conducts his training, and obviously he will at some point introduce the JuiceShop, provide demonstrations and other things. So that would be a starting point, I would say.
Thanks.
And as an alternative, as I said, a very nice way are the OWASP top 10. So I would say when you start with such a training, you should cover the OWASP top 10. That should be, I think, a target.
Can I ask further questions?
Obviously.
Yeah, we tried. We implemented security champions in our company too, and what we currently try to do is regular questionnaires into projects. So pick one security champion and ask them what are the problems in their current project, what could be some things to solve, and do you have any experience on this kind of process to establish what you called maintain interest?
I have to think about that question. You started with you want to perform assessment.
Yeah, the thing is that what you put on this one slide, maintain interest. Sometimes the interest into security decreases in favor of other things, other project interests, and yeah, then it is often not so easy to establish or to maintain the security in one project if you have a security champion there. And what we currently try to do is to establish a regular meeting with a meeting with one person of a project and ask him questions about the project, so that at the end the wisdom, what you call a knowledge base here, can be spread around other projects, to other security champions, to gain more information about what could be performed or could be done better in one project.
Yeah, I see where your question is heading to, and let me show you another slide which I'm having somewhere here, that will visualize the problem we are facing. Maybe that is a problem which is there. Let me see if I quickly find it. Otherwise, I will answer it directly. Where is it? I will answer it without that slide. It's not so important. So what I have discovered is that I can't tell the people what they are interested in. So that is more strategic view which I'm having now. You have to tell me if that fits your question. So I don't want to push security. So that's what you're saying by I want to ask what are your pain points. I would say. So that I provide kind of a dashboard. That is the initial phase, I would say. I provide a dashboard which I present to the whole company where the teams are listed. You can see it like this. So a dashboard, very easy to create. Team 1, team 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have different categories here, and I highlight what is good and bad. And then I automatically come into discussion with them, because before I show this this aggregated view, I give each team the view for the team only, so they have 1 week time to discuss it with me. And then I already come into this where they say this is going very bad, and that's why it is like bad like this. Or I measure it in the wrong way, and then we talk about it. Or they discover that they are doing something which they didn't expect, which they want to change. And this is for me the point where I talk with them, and then I present it to the management. So the management will make sure that they work on it. It's not me who tells it to them. It's the management which pushes it down. Does that answer your question, or was
Yes,
it
yes,
too broad?
Nice. Thanks.
Okay, good. Because when I go to, I for example, enforced once to perform a threat modeling. I did it only once. And that was the worst threat modeling session I ever had. The whole time, the team wasn't nice to me. And in the end, I also wasn't nice to the team. All on a professional level, obviously. But it was very hard to follow. And I thought the whole time, well, should I break up or not? I didn't break up. But I could also have stopped the threat modeling after 10 minutes. And that is because I invited the team and I wanted them to make threat modeling, and so there was no outcome. So they need to come to the security professionals, or they need to come to the conclusion that they want to do it alone. It's also okay in case they don't invite me and the team thinks, okay, we want to do threat modeling and we will do it alone without others. But there need to be a starting point. And that is what I reach with this. Okay. So we stopped here at the virtual COVID way on how to collect pins in the time of a pandemic in a virtual way. We talked about training rewards, and now we come to another technique which I'm using, nudging. So first I need to explain what nudging is. Nudging is, for example, that you see a road sign. It reminds you while you're driving how fast you're allowed to drive on that specific street. And after some time, it reminds you again. So that is kind of steering people in a particular direction, which you as the one who creates the signs want to achieve. One way are these security pins on the head. But as I said, you collect a lot of pins, and you might don't look at it very often. So what I did is for very important topics. So one topic which I covered at one client, this is the office of the SDA Open Industry Solutions, but it doesn't matter which company it is. You see here that I printed the pin and placed it on a figure here. So whenever you enter the office, you as a developer or operator pass through this toy. So as Open Policy Agent is about authorization, it's very important. I also added, for example, Docker or container security as one other topic, which I also placed on such a figure here. And in the end, I had around 3 figures, and I discovered that the teams play around with them and place them at different locations. Sometimes it's placed here, sometimes here, and here. So they actually recognize these important topics and the figure attached to it. I wanted to create a measurement if they ask me if one figure is missing and how long it takes until they inform me. But then COVID hit and I couldn't perform this measurement. Next to the security champion and training program, it's very important to do threat modeling. That are the most important pillars in our program. So threat modeling is about what are we building, what can go wrong, what are we going to do about it, and did we do a good enough job? That is taken from the Agilo, from the threat modeling manifesto. And when you want to introduce threat modeling in your company, you need to think about how do I actually introduce this? So that is a point where you can take a look at the threat modeling playbook. As I said, you don't need to follow it 100%. You just need to get ideas. How can I implement it? And then you need to modify it for your own way. So, for example, you need to get stakeholders buy-in. Without the buy-in of the management, the teams invest 1 hour, 2 hours, 8 hours, 3 days in a week, whatever you feel is right. You need to get this buy-in so that the investment is supported. Then you need to embed it in your organization. You need to train people on threat modeling. Then you slowly want to enhance the maturity of the threat modeling process and use nice technology with threat modeling. For the step, what can go wrong? I personally like, for example, OWASP Cornucopia, especially in the starting phase. It might get a bit boring after a while, but in the starting phase, it's perfect. So it's a card game. People like the game. The only thing which you need to bring is some time to play with these cards. In a remote way, you might use these cards online. You can import them in some of there are card games online where you can import your own decks, where you can also import OWASP Cornucopia, or you use a hybrid way in which you send out the cards beforehand, and it has a benefit that participants might take a look at it before, so you can play with the physical cards while you're meeting online. In case you would like to have free cards, I could make a deal with Robert Seedorf, and he, in case you send him an email after this talk and you're an OWASP German member, then he will send you such cards for free. So let us come to the next DevSecOps dimension. Test and verification, very important dimension 2. We can't focus on all the possible tests you can perform, so we will talk in now about the dynamic tests for applications. I introduced DSIM already. I can't show this slide on everything. I show you where it is located in DSIM, but here it's very nice to highlight how the DevSecOps maturity model can be used. So first you start with a simple scan. So a maturity model is built here from level 1 to 4. That means that it gets more difficult to achieve it, or it's not so important for security. And you have here around it the different dimensions, or in this case, the subdimensions. And we are now in the dynamic depth for applications. So on dynamic depth for applications, on level 1 here, you start with a simple scan. You just start over step, for example, and let it run against your application and take a look at the findings in the first run manually. Maybe at a later maturity, you automate it on level 2, for example. Afterwards, you need to think, okay, I might have dynamic parts, JavaScript. So I need to think about how do I treat dynamic parts. That means you have to adjust overstep a bit, that you also spider in a dynamic way, for example. Then you might have different roles which you need to test with overstep. And you need to cover maybe SQL operations. When we think about an online shop, you first put things in a specific order in the basket, then you log in, then you take a look at the basket, then you check out the basket, you get a PDF in the end. So there are steps which need to be performed in a specific order. So that needs to be automated. And maybe you need to cover a hidden path. So you might have an administration interface which is not mentioned somewhere within the application, which can't be figured out in a dynamic way. So you have to think, how do we make sure that that also takes into account the hidden web pages. And when you in the next maturity, you don't want to use only overstep. You might want to use other tools to perform the test as well. This is, I would say, a starting point on a low maturity level, which I also perform very often in the start when I come to a company. So I have the web, the domain pargel.pro here, and I put it into the application OWASP AMAS. OWASP AMAS is a project which will then take a look, for example, I don't know how the database is called, but Let's Encrypt. You might know Let's Encrypt. And they may publish which domains they created certifications for. So that might be one of the sources I must take a look at. It might also take a look at well-known subdomains like mail, and it generates all the subdomains you're having, and then you can perform nmap to scan these subdomains, which ports are open. And then you can push this into overstep, for example, to figure out which ports are which headers are there on the port 80, for example. I like to perform this in kind of an enterprise world, in a world where you have a lot of subdomains and no one knows what is actually there. So as bigger the organization, as more you have the problem that you don't know what is there, and then this is one approach. Obviously, as you need initially here the domains, there might be other domains as well. So that is the task which can be hardly automated. But then you need to figure out, and then you can put it into OWASP AMAS and follow this line here. Then when you would like to come to a higher maturity level, as I said, in the end, you might want to even use multiple scanners. Then the project Secure Code Box which is created by people mainly from Hamburg, maybe also from people around Germany that are the main contributors as far as I know. And the secure codebox has this task to orchestrate the scanners. So here you see a deployment pipeline, and maybe you as a developer commit code in a version control system or push it in the version control system, then the build starts, and it creates an artifact, pastes in a repository, and rolls out to the production near system. Then the secure codebox orchestrates the tests so that they fire against the production near system. But that is kind of an old view. So that is a state which I had 3 years back. Nowadays, you might want to do it in a more modern way. So this is the new way. You see here a Kubernetes cluster. So maybe you're running your application inside a Kubernetes cluster. Then the main thing here is that you have the auto discovery, which automatically detects that you are having a new Kubernetes service, and then a ZEP scan is started in case you have this annotation here enabled, that auto discovery is enabled, and then it pushes the finding into defect dojo, and afterwards the not handled findings into Slack. That is a more modern way, I would say. So when there is a change, it gets fired again. Defect Dojo itself is a very nice system. I first used it 4 years ago. At that time, it was very hard to deploy, I have to say. Nowadays, it's very easy to deploy it. So that there is not so much trouble. You can easily deploy it with a Helm chart into your Kubernetes cluster. Or use it on a simple Docker machine with Docker Compose. So for me, the main feature of a vulnerability management system like Defect Dojo is the so-called deduplication feature. Deduplication means that when you push a finding, we see here that there is a Defect Dojo and the findings are getting pushed here. When you don't do this once, right? You do this whenever there is a change, so maybe multiple times a day. And when there is a vulnerability and you checked it and you say, okay, this is false positive, or I do accept this specific vulnerability for 2 weeks, then you don't want to get informed for the next 2 weeks about the specific vulnerability. So that's why you have this deduplication. So Defect Dojo detects that it's already uploaded, that this finding is already present. It creates a reference to that finding, and then it checks, is it handled already? So is it accepted? Is it marked as transferred? Is it marked as mitigated? So that is what it checks. And then you can inform the team or the developer or the developers or the operators about that finding. So another tool which I created, this is not an OWASP project right now, and it's not open sourced in this moment, but it will be open sourced in the next couple of weeks, is a so-called cluster scanning. It's a collection of multiple tools, also of OWASP projects. And what you get with this is you test for malware, you test virtualized environments, for example, that the container is not running as root or that it is distroless. It checks for server-side components with known vulnerabilities. So what I mean here is known components, for example, in Java. So the jars are in a container, so I can check it, what is running in the runtime environment. And what you get indirectly from it is what you can see here. Because there's also a lifetime check, for example, how old is the image, you indirectly get that people want to enhance their patch life cycle. So they want to push new containers more often with new images under it. So how is it working? You have an image collector in the different clusters you're running. Then you have an orchestrator, that's how I call it. That orchestrator collects the images and then it performs scans. For example, the OWASP dependency check here, which is performing checks based on jars and collects the vulnerabilities for it from the National Vulnerability Database. And these findings are getting pushed into Defect Dojo, and then you can inform via email, for example, or via messenger like Slack, the developers about that finding, and only once, because the developer can perform a risk acceptance, for example, in the tool risk acceptance. As we have seen in this slide beforehand, risk acceptance can be performed, and then the developer will not get notified again. So let us come to the next project I would like to highlight here. That is a project which I actually have used only as a user. So the OWASP up sensor, there is a tool around it. From my point of view, the tool around it is not so important. What is important here is a paper for it, which highlights here what you should actually log when there is a security event happening. So from my point of view, it might be even more powerful than the web application firewall, because you define what to log, and then you have detection points in your application. For example, when there is an input exception happening, and then you define when to inform the developer about this special event, and what information the developer will get. So I mainly like here the idea about it, and the intellectual property, so that I can use it to get ideas when to inform developers, and which thresholds needs to be reached. So my conclusion for today is that open source projects and knowledge is very good, and it's good for a startup and for enterprises. So it can be used in both worlds from my point of view. As I have shown, all these projects I use in clients which are, for example, startups or enterprise clients. And all of that in the area of security. And OWASP has a lot of useful projects so that you can get the benefits that other people already thought about these problems, and you can just use it. Questions?
Actually, I have a question to you, Timo. Found it first of all, very interesting the different OWASP projects that you've been using. So we've seen quite a lot, like the DevSecOps maturity model, the secure code box, security pins, and so on. Was wondering, for people who might be interested in participating with OWASP projects to get involved, what is the best way to get started with active contribution?
Contribution, yeah, there are different maturities of contributions, let's say. So the start is to create an issue. Issue. No, I can't write here. Oh, I can. Issue. The next step is to be involved in Slack. So OWASP has a Slack account. For example, you can join DSIM in case you want to talk about the DevSecOps maturity model. There's also a Slack for Defect Dojo, JuiceShop, and so on. And then the next level would be to not express your ideas. The next level would be to create a pull request, which actually suggests an improvement for that project. Implement in an implemented way.
Great, thank you. I think it's. I will also post the Slack channel in a second in the channel if you're interested in getting involved, because I think there's a lot of interesting projects, and especially the ones that you mentioned. I think was one of the top ones just to learn more about. And I found it also quite easy to get involved with the community, as you said, just opening an issue, seeing if there's any more thoughts on that, and then basically just open your own pull request and make active contribution. Cool. Anybody, any other questions?
Perhaps another question. What is your experience? You showed a lot of automatic tools, OWASP ZAP, scanning, to maintain this stuff.
Yeah, that is. Let us take a look. I can give you some numbers. So this here is, let's say, 4 hours to create it, and then you run it when you feel like, right? So then the maintenance is when you want to run it, let's say once in a month. It takes you, depending on the size here, but I will just make one up. Let's say it takes you 8 hours to talk with the people, to solve it, and so on. So just to have a number in mind. So that is not so much, I would say. When you come to this one here, or this one, this just to set it up might be 100 days. And then you have to maintain it. So after this 100 days, then it depends on what you see as maintaining costs. Do you see maintenance cost as operating this, that it works? Or do you see maintenance cost in terms of you need to talk with the developers to solve their problems?
So because my experience is if you implement a new feature and you have a black box or a web application proxy in between, you a lot of times have to add this new feature that the automatic tools understand what to do, a little bit like Selenium tests or something like that.
Yeah, here I don't see so much maintenance in that terms. Obviously, the secure code box releases new features that you have to implement. But on the server side, I'm using Open API. So that gives me already most of the things. So in the so when you use an application which uses a different authentication mechanism, then you need to have a bigger adjustment, I would say. So as soon as you're not following the stack in your application, which is there and what you built this for, then you have again more workload. But as long as you follow it and you say, okay, all applications have Open API, and I use OAuth tokens with Keycloak, for example, and you created that it works with Keycloak, and that is the case for the next 2 years, then the maintenance overhead is only to implement new secure code box. But when you change your application development, then you have to expect more overhead here. Yes.
Thanks.
Any more questions? Let me just ask also another question I'm quite interested in. Timo, so as you said, you've presented quite a few projects, some of them that you develop yourself. Which are your top 3 OWASP projects that you think are really helping your day-to-day work as a DevSecOps consultant? Apart from, of course, from the ones that you created yourself.
Yeah. So I'm a lot into these automation. So no, let me start in a different way. So the first one is, I would say, is a community that I can ask people. So that is what helps me the most, I would say. So that is not a project. That is just that you can ask in Slack and you get an answer very fast. So what I often hear is that when you have a company behind it, you can ask and create tickets, and that is faster than open source, but that is not the case from my point of view. I get answers very fast. So that is what helps me a lot, I would say. Then afterwards, it's hard to say. So I would say the JuiceShop is very good for trainings, so that there is a high benefit with very low budget. Then I would say the next one is Defect Dojo, because it's independent from the scanners you're using. You need to put it somewhere at a centralized place. And I'm not allowed to use my own projects, right? So let me think. Yeah, right now I'm actually implementing this here, the secure code box at a client's place. And I have the expectation that it helps a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's, and all what you point out is really true. Also, if you have any questions and like if you want to know more about an OWASP project or a certain issue around application security, you can just go to ask the community, reach out, ask questions, go into Slack, or just actively contribute. And yeah, I think it's definitely helpful. And as you said, for myself, I also use Defect Dojo quite a lot. Found it really helpful just to visualize the vulnerabilities and just integrate this also with other security tooling. So I find quite a few OS projects that I use a lot in our customers' DevSecOps pipelines. So thank you. Any more questions?
I guess we can move on.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great, thank you very much, Timo. That was really interesting just to learn more about the different OWASP projects that you've been using. And as we've seen, there was quite a few on like the DevSecOps maturity model, security pins, Defect Dojo, the ASAM. If you're interested on learning more about the projects, and that's something I'll show in a short while, just go on OWASP.org and go on project. You probably noticed they have restructured the website. So I think find it quite useful just to get an overview and understanding of the different projects, and just try it out yourself. Just install like the JuiceShop, just install it locally, run it locally, test it out, or same with the Zap proxy, or just with a security pin. Timo, maybe you can offer this to get some security pins just for participants, or at least you can probably. I think they're available on your GitHub page, right, to print out?
Absolutely. Yeah, to print, yeah, you need to have your own printer, right? But you can print them out by yourself.
Yep.
That is the target.
Awesome. Great, thank you. Okay, so let's have a quick break of 5 minutes, and then we continue our talk with my overview of the OWASP JuiceShop and how to get started in a couple of challenges. So just gonna share my screen. Actually, just have a 5-minute break. Okay, so we'll be back around 7:10 in 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. Let's just wait 1 or 2 minutes more. Okay. Hope everybody or most of you are already back from your break and ready to continue. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Great. So we continue this evening with now a hands-on seminar on the OWASP JuiceShop. So Timo Pago just mentioned shortly the way of how to use the JuiceShop, and this is being a good way and opportunity for a training platform around application security. What I'll be showing you is how to get started with that and solve some really interesting challenges in the JuiceShop, and also show a couple of bonus challenges. So let's get started. So first of all, in order to get started with the OWASP JuiceShop, just go on the owasp.org page, and you will see on the top is the projects, the chapters, and then the events section. And if you go on the projects, hover over with your mouse, you will see that there's always already the OWASP top 10 dependency track, and then the JuiceShop as the flagship OWASP projects. So just click on that. And this will forward you to the overview page that I think Timo also already briefly showed before. So as mentioned, the OWASP JuiceShop claims to be the most modern and sophisticated insecure web application, and is used by various security professionals as well as by developers as a guinea pig for security tooling, and also as a security awareness platform. And it's also in compliant with the entire OWASP top 10, along with other security flaws. Also note that on the web page, it says the application contains, I think, over 100 different challenges. So a lot of time just to spend on different challenges for different vulnerabilities. And all the hacking progress is tracked on a scoreboard. However, the scoreboard is actually one of the easier challenges to solve. So this is hidden, and we as the attacker want to find out how to get there. And that's something we're going to focus on first, and as part of the first challenge. Before that, let's have an overview of how to get started with installing the JuiceShop. First of all, you just need to click on the GitHub page. This will forward you to Björn Kimmenich's, who is the creator of the JuiceShop overview page. Essentially, all the code is publicly available on GitHub. And if you're interested in just understanding how the application is built, you can all go in here and check out the code yourself. What I will be doing is just focus on the setup sections briefly here. The JuiceShop itself can be installed in different ways. It can be installed on the cloud provider of your choice, Azure Container, Amazon EC2, or you can just install it locally from source. However, what I'm going to focus on is on running on a Docker container. And it's pretty simple. If you just install a Docker container client on your machine or in your server, and just run Docker pull of the Kimmenich's JuiceShop container, and just it will run it locally on port 3000. Also be aware there's actually 15 million pulls of the Docker container of the JuiceShop, which I find quite an interesting number. So somebody in the background keeps pulling those Docker images of the JuiceShop. Somebody really likes that. So yeah, just an interesting fun fact. Okay, let's get started with the first challenge. As soon as we go start our Docker container locally, which I've already done in this case, we can just first of all look around the JuiceShop, just get familiar with the application itself. It looks and feels like a regular web shop. If you just click on the products, you can see there's an apple juice. Somebody left a review, which is claiming to be the admin JuiceShop, so looks like the admin account. And also you can log in as a user with a regular email, password, and you can also register as a customer. That's just something feels and looks like a real web shop. Also, there's various languages available. So I think the JuiceShop is over 73 languages, so quite a few. So, that's also something you get involved. If you feel like the JuiceShop is not available in your language, just open a pull request. All right. However, we know that the hidden scoreboard page is somewhere in the application. It's not referenced anywhere. So what we're going to do? Well, just know that just to get started with the JuiceShop, we don't really need a lot of fancy security tooling like a proxy like Burp or Zap. I mean, for advanced challenges, you definitely need it, but for the easier ones, all you need is just the inspect tool set of your local browser. So just right click on that, click on inspect, and this will now show you open the inspector tool set. And it will, I found it quite useful also on Firefox that you can even edit and resend network requests in the application. However, we are going to focus on the debugger section. Now, looking on the debugger section, we'll see the JavaScript files that the application is using. And if we now look at the main es2018.js, this looks like it's the main JavaScript source file that the application is using. If we just scroll down, we see there's a lot of lines of code, like over 20,000 lines of code. And to be honest, no way in the world I'm going to read through all of the code myself. It's just too much to understand, too much to worry about. The first step, just to find indications of hidden pages, let's just look for something that by just opening Control F and look for certain keywords, like in our case, score or scoreboard. So it already shows up something interesting like this. Some exceptions being raised for a scoreboard. Let me just try score dashboard. And looks like there's also a selector that indicates there is an app scoreboard inside the code reference. Let's just look a bit further and see what happens. And what we can see here now is that the path, which is up here, the search path, is also indicated in the source code. So we can find a path that has recycle, one for the register, one for hacking instructor, and also one for score dashboard. So with this knowledge in mind, we can just guess now or have an educated guess of where the scoreboard might lie. So if we just now copy this and type in the scoreboard, let's see what's going to happen. Oh, looks like we've just solved our first challenge in the OWASP JuiceShop. So what we've seen now is that by just looking through the front end source code of the web application, we were able to identify a hidden page left by developer or left just by somebody in the page. And from this, we can just access that. So this itself is quite common. What we've seen, or what I've seen as part of pen testing engagements or security assessments, that sometimes code snippets are just being forgotten or lost, and they're still left on the web server. Now, looking at the scoreboard itself, it has over 100 challenges available. And the interesting thing is that all the challenges can be selected by the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. So from broken access control over to code injection, cross-site scripting, it's all in there, all for you to try out and challenge yourself. Now, in the next step, let's just focus on a cross-site scripting challenge. I'm just going to select this one here, and this will have a couple of challenges, including one that is the DOM-based cross-site scripting challenge. From the description, it says to perform a DOM-based cross-site scripting attack by using this payload. So I'm going to just copy this to my clipboard and see whether I can find a way somewhere to inject this into the application. So before we start with this, what is DOM-based cross-site scripting? DOM-based cross-site scripting is essentially a cross-site scripting attack that allows you to inject client-side JavaScript code into the victim machine or into the browser. And it's not reflected in the response of the server, which makes it really difficult to detect. And those kind of vulnerabilities can allow an attacker to steal session tokens, install a keylogger, or get to the user to perform an arbitrary action that is unwanted. So let's just copy this to our clipboard. and go back to the JuiceShop and look around where we could inject potentially some code in here. Well, the first that comes into the mind is the search bar. So if you just type in Apple, we can see that the results are shown here. So apple juice, and yeah, it's just looking like a regular search bar. However, let's just try this just to inject a header tag into the application. This basic HTML code and see what's coming back. Well, no results are found, but looking at that, we see that actually the header tags are already reflected inside, or it looks like they're being processed by the DOM. And looking at that, we can actually see here that the headers are actually being properly processed. So with this easy test, we can already know that this might be a potential sink for our cross-site scripting. So now let's just take our payload, which is an iframe that just injects a JavaScript, executes a JavaScript alert with cross-site scripting. So for you pen testers, that's probably the most easiest way just to test for any sort of cross-site scripting and see what happens. Well, looks like we've just solved our second challenge. Now, with our payload, we were able to successfully inject the iframe with a alert box that shows cross-site scripting into the application. As you see, there is really poor input sanitization done on the client side that leads to that. As well as also showing some hidden information, like some error message. However, I'm aware that, or I was made aware by Timo Pagel that there's actually an additional challenge for that DOM-based cross-site scripting attack that I want to highlight, which shows really like how far you can go with a DOM-based cross-site scripting attack. And for this one, can I just kind of show you the shake logger piece, which is an extra challenge of the JuiceShop. So Timo Pagel created this just to inject additionally, instead of injecting an iframe, we are now injecting a shake.js JavaScript file with a malicious code. And on the client server, we will have a logger.php running that is going to trying to perform or record the keystrokes of the user. And there's this phishing link provided that we, as a user, would click, and that's what I'm going to show right now. Is we are now logged in. We don't need to be logged in. We are just getting this phishing email from the valued as a valued customer, and Björn Kimmenich as a CEO tells us, wow, it's something's free. There's a big lottery to win. And we just want to claim our prize right now. And just going over the link, you see that there's already encoded JavaScript code inside or running on, or just included on the target application. So let's just click on that and see what happens. Well, it looks like we are just now logged into the application. We'll just access the application without being logged in. Now, this part of the challenge, there is going to be some interesting music running in the background that is just part of the challenge. I just disabled that because you can't really hear that. There's also some funny shaking of the application. So basically, we now look into the inspect piece and look in the debugger section. We can see that apart from the sources that we've just seen, we also have a shake.js running included on another port or another local application that is actually being used. And this makes it looking in an interesting way. Well, the thing is like, okay, this looks a bit funny, but let's just assume we as a user now just want to try to log in with our credentials. And just make a regular purchase. Well, as again, it just feels an X normally. However, as the attacker, we are now running, and this could be potentially on a remote host very easily. We are running a logger.php application. Now, whatever just is inserted, my username, then go at OWASP.org, my password, which is this one here, it's just a bit cut off. But essentially, we were now, as attacker, was able to keystroke the login of the application by just using that local logger shake.js file. And we are also able to gain access to the cookie of the user, including the access token. And I found this quite interesting to see how far we can get. And as I said, I've seen this quite a lot with customers in pen tests, that it's not just about popping up an alert box, but you can actually go quite far and perform advanced attacks like this. Now, let's now look back on another challenge. So let's go back, let's reload the page in order to avoid this bit annoying shaking. And go back to the scoreboard. And focus this time on another attack, which is the code injection attack. So clicking here on the scoreboard on the injection side, we find various challenges. As you're aware, is that code injection is the top number one of the OWASP vulnerabilities. Hence, there's a lot of interesting challenges for you to solve. And one is to log in as the administrator's user account. So it's a login admin. And let's just try to do this and step up the challenge. First of all we know is we just need to log in with the admin's user account. So let's just go back on the side, look around on the page, and we can see this Apple Juice review here. And there's a user called admin@juice-sh.op that said it's one of his favorite products. Well, let's just now take an educated guess. Take this user and try to log in. So let's need to log out from my current account because I'm just a regular user. Log in. And now what we could do is just start guessing a password at doing a brute force of passwords. This might be successfully, like it might be successful if you keep doing this for a while. You might get logged out. The user might get logged out for some reason, which takes a lot of time. And that's not part of the challenge. So let's just try something else. Usually with code injection attacks, we would want just to insert, first of all, a backtick. So I'm just going to open the console right now on the side and insert a backtick, which is just the easiest way just to test for SQL injection and see what's going to happen. So before I do that, just to see what says the login says invalid email or password. Now let's just insert a backtick and see what happens. Looks like we actually solved another challenge by provoking an error that was not successfully or consistently handled. So we can see here it says now object. That doesn't look like something we would expect coming from the application, right? Going back to the console and clicking on the error message was shown, going to the response, we can see here that we have an error message being thrown from a SQLite error, which already gives us really juicy information about what's just been happening. And for our luck, we can even read the whole SQL statement inside the error message and see how the application is performing its logic. So what we can see here is that there's a query where it selects all the users from the database, where the email is the email of the user which is inserted, and a MD5 password hash. And that's actually something we can already use for our attack purpose, just to take the hash and start cracking it and guessing whether we're able to find out the correct password. However, when we look very closely, we can see that the backtick that we've just inserted here is right down after the email. And that's something from the attacker's perspective that we can now use just to step up the challenge and perform a SQL injection attack. So let's just do this further and now say or 1 = 1, which essentially equals all the query until here till true, and then insert a comment for the SQL statement, which basically comments out the rest of our SQL statement and ignores all the password. So with this in mind, just take a minute or just take a quick guess what is going to happen now. Now, with this one, we are now inserting a backtick is equaling it to true and commenting on the rest of the code. And now trying to log in, we don't even need to worry what password we have. You can even set something one. We are now successfully logged in as the user of the admin user of the JuiceShop. And this was because of the injection attack we've just done, just manipulating the SQL statement on the client side in order for our favor not to provide any sort of password or any sort of authentication. And again, that's also another challenge we just solved, the login admin challenge. And in fact, you don't even need to, in that case, you don't even need to select the admin login, because if you just insert that SQL statement without providing any email, you would get also logged in because the admin is the first user of the database. So when you log in with that statement, you are also already logged in as the admin user. So no need to actually find out the admin user email. Great. So again, that's, I think, a very visible and interesting attack of SQL injection. What I kindly ask you now to do is just to step up the challenge and go to the JuiceShop of the JuiceShop Heroku app. That's something I'm just, well, actually, it's just down, but I'll just still post it in the chat. Or go locally, just go on the JuiceShop page of Björn Kimmich and install the application yourself. Try out a couple of challenges. Try to log into the scoreboard. Try to perform a cross-site scripting using a DOM-based cross-site scripting attack, and log in as the admin user, and see whether you're able to solve those challenges yourself. As I said, there is over 100 challenges inside the application, all for you to try out and learn more about application security, and even some advanced ones where you can just install malware from a target system and run this in the context of the application. Yeah, if you have any questions about the JuiceShop, want to get involved, feel free to join our Slack channel or just open and issue a pull request on GitHub. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Are there any questions?
I have a question. How long would it take approximately to solve all the challenges? There are like 100 challenges, right?
Yes. To be honest, I haven't tried solving all of the challenges, but just considering is that, yeah, there's 100 challenges and different, we just showed this different type of levels. It will probably take you a while to solve them. I would just guess probably a couple of weeks or days of, depending, of course, on the experience. Maybe Timo, you can even give some thoughts on this from your side. Have you solved a couple of challenges yourself?
Yeah, I have solved a couple of challenges, but I never solved all of them. I would say it takes months. There is a guy, I don't know his name. He wanted to provide a few years back all the solutions for all challenges on his video, and after a while he recognized that it's a lot of stuff. It's not so easy
Agree.
to solve.
Yeah. So yeah, just take some time off then if you want to learn more. The good thing is that some of the challenges are available on a GitHub book by Björn Kimmich. So if you're getting stuck and you want to learn more, it's also from the hacking instructor perspective. If you want to train your developers or other system administration on how to do hands-on hacking, you can use this as a platform for capture the flag hacking, and enable also run it in a different mode, just to have this hacking instructor mode. And you can also have a walkthrough through different challenges yourself, and then let the developers do more the advanced work. Any more questions?
Yes, one question. If you want to install it, or if you want to perform it in a company, Timo showed the pins and incentives you can do. What is a possibility to do it? I just wonder, okay, you set up a server and everybody can connect, or you say everybody has to do it at localhost. But on the other side, it would be nice if you can compare the scores of the participants to each other. Yeah. What would be a good solution?
Yeah, and that's actually a very good question, because in fact, the JuiceShop itself offers that hacking instructor mode. So you would, as the hacking instructor, you would have your own interface and seeing different users or different members of the CTF team solving those challenges, and they can even compete with each other on a global scoreboard, saying this those are the challenges have been solved, and this person has solved that challenge. So
Cool.
yep, definitely possible. Any more questions? And we just extending quickly on the other one. There's a companion guide. So that's the Pwning JuiceShop that you can use just to run this, as I said, as a workshop yourself. Okay, there's another question in chat. Okay, from Timo.
That is a private question.
Okay, sorry. That's good. Any other questions? So I'm going to show on how to host a Capture the Flag event. So this should give you some more information on how to host this as a CTF event, including a different mode.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's no more questions from the audience, I think we can go on. Also be aware that Johannes Schönborn will host a more deep dive session of the OWASP JuiceShop in the upcoming weeks. That there's going to be dive more into specific details and specific challenges of the JuiceShop. So just stay tuned, and it's going to be made available on Eventbrite. And if you're interested, just ping us, or yeah, just stay tuned on the Meetup page and have a check on our local Community Stammtisch event page on GitHub.
100
Right.
challenges in 20 minutes. How hard can it be? So record it and then just play at 10 times speed.
Yeah. Cool. Then let's just go on with our next speaker. Just okay. All right. Can you see my screen? Perfect. So really looking forward now for our next lightning talk on physical red teaming, which is going to be provided by Mihael Stanojevic. Mihael is a CEO and founder of sixdimension.io, and he's currently specializing in security audits and security assessments with a focus on physical security. And he's also had his fair share of experience with physical red teaming assessments that he's going to share with us in his lightning talk. All right, Mihael, are you ready to present?
Yes, I am. Do you hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Then I'll just share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, as Dan already introduced me, I'm working as a consultant in various regulated industries. I have round about like 15 years of experience, and a very interesting topic for us in the current market will be the topic of physical security and the pen testing of physical security. So that's a topic that's in Germany not very developed yet. It's something that we more know from the US sector, as you can see in several videos on several conferences. But the topic is more and more coming, and it is also really important, and it's absolutely exciting. So what I want to give you today is like a quick insight about the physical pen testing in the aspect of the red teaming. And for us, one of the most important references in this area is the ISO 27001. I will explain quickly how this is connected and show you two quick samples of how things can go very bad very quickly. And yeah, also talk about the aspect of our now everywhere present topic of home office. In the end, I will give you just 4 quick hints what you can do to make your area safer. So physical security can be divided basically into 2 topics, like secure areas and secure equipment. The ISO 27001 has therefore 2 parts or 2 sections in the annex, which is the A11.1 that focuses mainly on the physical perimeter and how to protect this and how to access it, or how to set the controls to access it properly. And the Annex 11.2 or A11.2 is more focused on the devices, on all your utilities that you have, for example, like also cabling and how to maintain your stuff properly. So one of the real life stories, I was auditing a client in the financial sector, and you always go there where you can cause the most chaos, where you can destroy the most, where you can kill most people. And that's usually stuff like infrastructure, like a server room. Okay, so we went there, we just walked along, and my guide on the tour showed me the server room. And when I do this, I mentally always prepare for, okay, how can I attack? You go through all your experience, through all your steps. And when you have time and when you can do it, you always like to try to pick a lock. This situation was when I faced, in terms of lock picking, one of my hardest challenges. And I think I found the first really unpickable lock on the market. And it looked like this. So what's the issue here? We have no lock that we can pick because we basically have no lock at all on the door. And so, okay, this was already one of the frightening moments in this audit, until you see this. Now, the next step would be, depending on your assignment, what to do, to, for example, attack the hardware that's in there. But why to bother to attack any hardware when you can just take out the whole server? So you just basically unscrew it if it's screwed in, and if not, then you just take it on your arm, you unplug it, and you go away. And the second example of how things can go very wrong very quickly is this one here. We again audited a client, and everybody of us knows the new trend now with several companies that are delivering the drinks directly to the office when you need it. And these people are not really trained to focus on security. I took this picture here, and it was the 3rd or 4th time that this happened. And even worse, on the next floor up, where it went into the building, into the office spaces, there were, of course, also boxes of drinks that were keeping the next door open. So basically here, the physical perimeter is completely broken, and you even really don't need to pen test anything there because you can just walk through. What challenges do we face in the home office area? In the home office area, we have unmanaged infrastructure or insecure infrastructure. We have unknown devices where we don't know how safe they are. And one of the most interesting attacks there, which is like, I'm a little bit undecided if I would count this into physical pen testing or in pen testing in general, is the rogue access point. And we did a proof of concept for this, and this really works. So especially if you have an area where your notebook is standing, where you have very bad reception, you can just give it a nicer signal and the notebook will switch if it's not configured properly. The second part of the home office problem is you have a very unsafe environment. So you have untrained people around you, people who maybe don't know how to handle your hardware properly when standing around. You have kids, maybe, you have maybe pets that will, I mean, I know that dogs like notebooks, and as it was in school that you said, I couldn't do my homework because my dog ate it. I think the next big thing should be there. I couldn't work because my dog ate my notebook. And of course, you also have the risk of theft in your own apartment or in your house, or burglary or whatever, so that your hardware gets stolen, because normally your building is not as secured as a proper office building or like a commercial building. You have no security service there, you have nothing. What's to take away from this quick talk? When you are somewhere in a secured area where most likely somebody made his mind why something is there, why this door has to be locked, why it is secured, keep in mind that every measure counts. As you saw in the photograph with this, with the drinks in the door, if this door is open, that's bad. But if the next door upstairs is open, it's even worse. And the result is that people are thinking, oh yeah, I will just keep this one door open, and you know, somewhere else there is a person who thinks exactly the same thing, especially in summer when it's warm and you can just walk through buildings. But don't be gullible. One thing that annoys me the most when I'm at my clients is that, I don't know if this is a special German thing, but we have this culture of you should be nice to people, you should open the door because it could be potentially a client of your company. And this is just wrong. If you don't know somebody, don't open the door. Just ask them nicely to badge in like everybody else. And if they cannot badge in, send them to the security counter. Protect your assets. When you leave your office, be sure that your screen is locked. Be sure that your container or your shelf or whatever you have is locked. If I'm allowed to, I make a very nice, I have a very nice habit of just walking around during the day through offices and collecting notebooks. This is I was educated in this way by one big consulting company where when you left your notebook somewhere unattended, you could just find a card on your desk later that says, yeah, feel free to go to the IT service and pick up your notebook. And always it is important to keep your eyes open. If you see something, say something to the person who's in charge for the security in this building. Either broken doors, broken windows, people that are not there usually, things that change, that look weird, always report them. Because if the facility management doesn't know about it, they cannot fix it. And if nobody in the company is aware about the security topic or about the security issue, it won't get fixed. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. You talked about home office and about the comparison between the parameter of a company and home office.
Mm-hmm.
What could be high probable killing chains in home office? So if I think, okay, I'm now, like you said, you have not so high defense mechanisms. What could be a killing chain?
You could potentially just break in somewhere. steal the hardware, then you are again back to the point that every security measure counts. So if you have hardware that's not encrypted or something, you have access to the data. I really liked our proof of concept with the rogue access point, where you could just access the hardware or the data traffic. And another really easy one, if you are living like in this new fancy structures, you know, where like here in Frankfurt, like Europaviertel or so, you can basically just take a binoculars and you can look at what people do. I live in opposite of a bank, and I can literally, with enough zoom, I can read what the people do on their notebooks, on their computers in the building. And this is the same thing that you can do also with people somewhere. And it always, of course, the question is the probability of it. So how valuable am I as a target? But if you know that a CEO or whatever is somewhere living around you, and you have the view line, so to say, into his private area, then this could be one attack.
What was in my mind was there is a Darknet Diaries podcast about the LinkedIn breach. And there was, I don't know, millions of credentials which were exfiltrated. And he talks about it, and it was because when it comes to CURT, it was the documents were made public available. And this was the hacker first looked who is a possible target. So one who is VPN, who is has Cisco as its description in the social media, and then he went and looks around. Okay, he has a blog page, and the blog page was hosted at home. And then he found, I think it was, he could make a reverse shell using a web vulnerability. I don't know. I think it was, yeah, it could make a web reverse shell. And then he detected that he was inside a VM and made a brute force attack against the SSH login. He broke. He found the credentials after days, and then he was at an iMac, and at the iMac there was a private key and all the software for the VPN login to LinkedIn, and then he exfiltrated all the data.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I do, so to say, as a nighttime and weekend hobby sometimes is I like to break into smart home devices. Preferably, the best thing to buy there is like you just go on Amazon and you shop on Black Friday for the cheapest smart home shit, because this is something that you will find a lot. And these things, for example, introduce you huge security issues in your home network. And from there on, you can also go on to the rest of your network.
Actually, I have also something just to add on what I've seen in terms of physical security, especially in cities like in Berlin. It's been quite common that there's some organized crime at the moment going on, where there are gangs that are using drones, just very small drones with a camera attached, just to scan or on office buildings, just to see who's in there, what are people typing on the keyboard. And you can even do this, you know, if at night, also just for finding potential targets, just to break into somebody's home, like, you know, where a CEO might be living in a certain area. Just drive around the drone at night and see what's inside. And of course, it's illegal, but it has happened. It's quite common. So I think that's also something to consider, especially when you work from home, whether somebody is flying around drones in the neighborhood and not reporting that.
Currently, we have the benefit of that basically in terms of burglary or stealing things, we have the benefit that hopefully most of the people are staying at home. I mean, there are a lot of these horror stories out there where people just like either you just know by the advertising on the car to which company the car belongs, and you break into the car and you steal the notebook. Now, at the moment, the likelihood is very low that the notebooks are in the cars, but in general, you have this issue that you can just take it from the car. I know like a ton of people, and it's always a little bit, you know, like not nice in the private area to be the person who's always like, hey, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you have a security issue. You know, you don't make friends with this. So basically the point is that it depends a lot on the whole package, like where you store your stuff, and yeah, so how accessible is it? Because I found out in my very painful way that most of the cars don't have any alarm after my car got robbed, and it's yeah, you can basically just go around, break a window, and take it. One other story that's not very representative for Germany, because luckily the people don't use it, but you have it, for example, I found this a lot in the Middle East when I was traveling around, or also in Latin America. This whole story of keypads on doors that you just have to unscrew one screw, and you can basically like shortcut it so you can open the door. That's also something that's quite easy and common to use. Yeah, I mean, sometimes in like student dorms, you have normal keys, so like the old school keys for normal room doors. I have a whole keychain of these things. I never break them because I look in there and I know roughly, okay, it's number 32 or 35, and I just open the door. This is also one common way how to get through something.
Great, thank you. Actually, I also have a quick question around social engineering and physical security. What do you think, from your experience, how much does it help, like in certain situations, like doing any social engineering, for example, on security guards, or just on the regular employee who just wants to get into the building and just to follow him? Have you had a lot of experience with that?
Yeah, so the topic of physical security or physical pen testing and social engineering are basically, you cannot do one without the other. Be always nice to the people. Always just chat with the security guards. They are usually sitting at very good places where you can see, okay, how does it work? How much attention does he pay to people who walk through somewhere? Or just be like super friendly. I did it in one case that I chatted a lot with the security guard in another building of the company or of the bank, where I was not even assigned with my office. So I could anyway just badge in there with my card, but he didn't know that I have a card. He didn't know that that he didn't have any proof that I'm working for the bank. So I just chatted with him on a regular basis. And one day where I really had to go into this, and it was by accident. I didn't have my badge with me. I needed to get in. I was just like, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot my badge. I have to go really urgently to this meeting. And he just opened the door, like the bypass, and I could walk through. And this is something that you can just do in the same way. For what I use social engineering at most is to find out about problems in the processes of the security guards of the team. You just chat with them, you just ask them, you basically interview them in a very friendly way and environment, and you can find out a lot about like the security breaches that they have in terms of yeah, one of my favorite statements of a security guard was when I asked him, Yeah, so it was a very it's a very long building. Literally, it's like 3 buildings attached to each other. So you can, if you are on the highest floor, you can walk through basically like 200, 300 meters through the city. And I asked him, so yeah, how is it in the night when you do your tour and you have an alarm in the most far away building section? And he was like, yeah, we just go there, and when we do our tour, like and then we check it. Because if I go there when the alarm is raised, until I arrive there, it's anyway too late. And this is a nightmare statement. I mean, it's just like you go and so I know there, and this is not just like this one guy. This is like a very, very normal symptom that they have. That if you're just as far away as possible from the guards where they are sitting, you just need to know where they are sitting, and you go to the most far away place in the building, and you have a very, very good chance of just breaking in without getting caught. Tailgating is, of course, also part of social engineering, which you can do everywhere. You just follow the people, you just follow the herd, you walk in.
Great, thank you, Mihael, for sharing your experience around your physical security experience. And you've seen there's quite a lot of various aspects on that, like social engineering, or just trying the easiest way in, locked or easy doors that you can just they're just being open. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, one more comment about this. If the people are interested, we can make a longer talk about this, because this is just like a quick view into, and it would be much easier to talk 2 hours about it than just than just 10 minutes. So if the people are interested, they can just give feedback, and then we can make a longer session about this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mihael.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So think now, Johannes, you want to give a couple of outro words?
Yeah, I mean, should we start the feedback session on Slido?
Exactly. I think it's a great idea. So I think I've just opened that right now. Can you maybe share your screen just to get the feedback session open?
Let me see, where's the Slido link?
Yep. So if you have your Slido still open on your phone, you probably see that there is a feedback form for us just to provide your input.
Maybe to give the number again, not that I didn't note it down, but if anybody else did forget to note it down.
Yep. I am going to do that. Should I share my screen? Or do you have the
Or like that?
Yeah. I think that actually there's a couple of things public. Yeah, just use the meeting code 7978. And you see we already have some feedback collected. I'm just
And
going
we also need to see when to close down the recording.
Yeah. And yeah, just give us some feedback if you have any other questions. Yep.
Yeah, and
yeah,
otherwise,
just keep it open.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I just wanted to say otherwise, thanks everybody for attending, and then you are free to unmute yourself and join the after banter. The only thing is I cannot see the QA things coming in, so you need to have a look at that, Dan.
Yep, I can do that. Just look at that. Also, I think we discussed also another upcoming event around the end of June, so 29th of June. Is that correct, Johannes?
Yes. So the date itself would be I think the 28th or 29th, like you said. And we are looking to catch up with the full hands-on session. So for today, with having Timo and Mihael around, we did opt out to postpone that part. But again, also for the feedback, if you liked what Dan was doing and showing and you would like to do that yourself hands-on, then feel free to write that on the Slido page. So we can also a little bit estimate more or less how high the participation would be. So we already started with creating an ISO image that would have, for example, the JuiceShop and the Bird Proxy Community Edition installed. We would then hand that out like a week before end of June. So you could prepare, and then we would simply take a lot of time, slowly walk through a couple of those challenges and then see how it works out. Maybe we do that then every other month or so. On the technical side, maybe JuiceShop, maybe something else, depending of then how we see how far the participants are and what they're interested in. We could also break out into other things like, very simple expert development on learning images like Protostar or Nebula. That's something you can Google or that we could talk about. Yeah, so preparations are ongoing for this. The only thing, I also had a quick talk with Björn just now. We need to see if we then will do that under the OWASP banner or outside of OWASP, because the original idea was that as soon as COVID is over and we are having the meetup in person again, probably in the Hotel Capri, like now 2 years ago almost. The idea was that we would have a main stage with a talk or two and breakout rooms where we would have to collect a little fee of the participant for these hands-on trainings so we can pay for the rooms. But that seems to be not possible under the OWASP banner. So maybe those things would be differently structured unless we find a sponsor. But yeah, we will see about that.
As you can see, there's a lot of things lined up. So if you're interested in learning more, and I'm just getting some of the feedback in that really enjoyed the different talks, and also maybe another talk on physical pen testing, as well as a deep dive on JuiceShop or different projects. So that's something we happily can organize. Great. I am, or Johannes, is there anything you want to say before I stop the recording?
No.
Okay, then let me stop the recording.